Hello, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this online conferences You Are Next Empowering Creative Women, which is part of the UNESCO Resilient movement. Today, the debate will focus on gender equality in creative industry in the Asia-Pacific region and how the UNESCO Sabrina initiative contribute to improving women access in the digital sphere. To start this event, I would like to welcome the Director General of UNESCO, Mrs. Audrey Azoulay, to deliver her welcoming remark.
Dear friends, I'm delighted to welcome you all to this online conference. Today we are celebrating the conclusion of a joint initiative by UNESCO and Sabrina Ho to promote gender equality in the field of digital creation. I would like to start by very warmly thanking Sabrina Ho for her commitment at our side. At a time when culture is facing an unprecedented crisis as lockdown measures speed up digitization, this conference comes at a decisive moment. This is why we wanted to be part of a series, the Resilient Debate Series, organized by UNESCO. To date, more than 220 debates have been held in more than 70 countries. Focusing on the recovery of culture after the crisis, they also address gender inequality. Because inequalities are deeply rooted in the cultural field. First of all, women are underrepresented, especially in the most prominent creative roles and in decision-making positions. In general, women have less access to financial resources and are paid less than their male counterparts. We are well aware of these disparities, and UNESCO highlighted them 2 years ago in its report entitled Reshaping Cultural Policy, Advancing Creativity for Development. Because of the pandemic, if we do nothing, women risk being left even further behind. And how can we expect it to be otherwise when girls and women are less connected and when they are 4 times less likely than men to master basic digital skills, as shown in another of our publications, I'd blush if I could. But these inequalities are not unavoidable. And our message on that is clear. There will be no recovery without culture. There will be no recovery without women. Supporting women in the creative industries is not only about making concrete progress towards gender equality. It's also about showing that change is possible, that change is underway. Through the You Are Next initiative, we've helped to bridge this digital divide with your support, dear Sabrina. Through this initiative, hundreds of young women in Mexico, in Palestine, Senegal, Afghanistan, and Tajikistan have acquired essential skills for the digital environment, including coding, business management, and the distribution of their creation. In Senegal, for instance, the DigiTL project by an NGO called Africulture Urban allowed young female artists to take part in tailored digital training courses. Now, these young women are role models who show that it is possible for women to make a living from their creations. They make a very convincing case for independence, providing proof that it is possible to rise above prejudice. I am convinced that today's discussions will bring us a little closer to the ideals of justice, equality, and dignity. However, much remains to be done. The year 2021, declared by the United Nations as the International Year of Creative Economy for Sustainable Development, is an ideal opportunity to move forward in this respect. I thank you all for your contribution and wish you a very fruitful conference. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Audrey Azoulay, Director General of UNESCO, for this inspiring speech. Now, I would like to give the floor to Mrs. Sabrina O, CEO of Sheung Culture.
Dear ladies and gentlemen, today is a very special day. The importance of the culture and creative industries for generating jobs, wealth, and social engagement is increasingly being recognized by government officials, private, corporates, and non-profit organizations. There is a strong link between sustainable development and the investment in creative and culture potential. Unfortunately, all over the world, female creators continue to face dramatic gaps in terms of education and professional training. We know that women are underrepresented in key creative roles and decision-making positions. In order to promote the gender equality in the digital creative industry with UNESCO, we have launched in 2018 the UNESCO Sabrina Ho initiative, You Are Next, Empowering Creative Women. So today, I would like first to congratulate the 4 projects selected from this You Are Next initiative. Hashtag Be a Voice in Mexico, WAVE, Women Audio Visual Education in Palestine, DigitEls in Senegal, and Digital Art Academy in Tajikistan. And I would like to thank UNESCO, represented today by Ms. Audrey Azoulay, Director General of UNESCO. Today we give young women, female cultural entrepreneurs an opportunity to innovate and advance their careers in the digital creative industry. I believe that our You Are Next initiative can have an important impact on the gender equality in the digital creative industry. As a cultural entrepreneur myself, I believe that the private sector can work with international organizations like UNESCO and become partners for change. Today, I am happy to open this online conference focusing on the gender equality in the digital creative industry within the Asian region. And I would like to welcome our speakers and audience. Today's discussion will be crucial to empower young women in the region to invest in entrepreneurship and also to raise awarenesses on adequate policy to promote gender equality. To conclude, I would wish you all a good debate. Remember, the future is female and the future is digital. And I am sure that new generation of women will rise and take part of this creative economy because you are next. Thank you for being here today with us. We wish you all the best and stay safe.
Rising of the Me Too movement, different action and campaigns were launched to raise awareness on the gender gap in the creative industry. And as mentioned by the Director General of UNESCO, in 2018, UNESCO published a report which mentioned that women are less connected, they have less access to training programs, and they are also underrepresented in the creative market. To address those issues, UNESCO, with the great support of Mrs. Sabrina Wu, launched the UNESCO Sabrina Wu initiative, You Are Next Empowering Creative Women. This new program supports 4 projects in Mexico, Palestine, Senegal, and Tajikistan, and they are empower young women under the age of 40 working in the digital creative industry. Today, our debate will focus on gender equality in the Asia Pacific region, and we are very happy to welcome 8 inspiring young women in the region to share their experience and also to give some advice and measure to promote this gender equality. The first session will focus on the digital creativity and women entrepreneur with speakers from Tajikistan, Vietnam, India, and Nepal. The second session will focus on gender equality policy in the Asia Pacific region with speakers from Indonesia, Vietnam, United States, and Singapore. But before that, I would like to introduce our moderator, Dr. Shingu, which is the director of the Master of Cultural and Creative Industry at Monash University in Australia. She is also an expert of the 2005 Convention on Protection and Promotion of the Diversity of Cultural Expression. Dr. Shin, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Diana. Good afternoon. Thank you, everyone, for being a part of this very important conversation on gender equality and celebrate women's creativity, especially in the digital industries in the Asia-Pacific region. I would like to thank again UNESCO Sabrina Ho initiative for prioritizing voices of young women in our sector, without which we would not have the opportunity to work collectively to address this very significant problem in the digital creative industries in the world. My name is Shin. I was the director of the Master of Culture and Creative Industries at Monash University and am now the UNESCO 2005 Convention Expert Facility Expert. This symposium is organized as part of UNESCO's Resilient Art movement, launched on the 15th of April, the World Art Day, to raise awareness of the devastating impact of COVID-19 on the culture sector. We have so far over 200 debates to be had around the world, and the momentum created by these debates are sure to influence future thinking around the role of arts and culture in society, which gender equality will be a very important issue of. So this afternoon, we have a great lineup of excellent young creative women entrepreneurs to share with us their stories of being the champions of pushing boundaries, of changing gender stereotypes, of overcoming gender discrimination embedded deeply in some of the traditional societies in Asia. In our first session, we will hear from 4 excellent young women entrepreneurs from diverse creative practices, including music, technology, graphic design, visual art, to tell their stories of finding themselves through a space called creative entrepreneurship. Importantly, this is a space where meaning and purpose are always more important than status and owning the business. For our audience, you can ask questions via the chat functions in this Zoom session. If you're watching the symposium live streamed through the You Are the Next website, you can click the Ask Question button with your questions. And these will come through to our UNESCO Bangkok team, who will bring some of these questions in for discussion at the end of each sessions. If you are watching the symposium using Facebook Live, you can still participate by leaving your questions in the comment section. We will share these with our panel members, and these will become the basis for future reflections and dialogues. Thank you so much, and I look forward to hear your views and your questions. Without further ado, I would like to introduce our guests for our first panel session. We have 4 industry panel members for this session. Nyoza Aini is from Dushanbe, Tajikistan. She has worked with various NGOs such as Bactria Culture Center, Project Hope, GIZ, and UNICEF. Nyoza also had had considerable experiences working in both humanitarian projects and private business sector. She manages the project Digital Arts Academy from Afghanistan and Tajikistan. She has been involved in various social projects, including being a trainer of the Career Guides project for teenagers between the year of 14 and 16 years old. So Nyoza, welcome to this session. You can unmute yourself and say hello.
Thank you very much for your invitation. Nice to meet all of you.
Looking forward to hear your story. Second, we have Nguyen Nguyen. Nguyen is an emerging Vietnamese sound artist currently based in Hanoi, experimenting across a range of left field aesthetics and expressions. She has worked with international labels such as Time Released Sound, Unknown Tones Records, Soft, Flaming Pines, amongst many others. In addition to her solo work, Nguyen has collaborated with artists from various other disciplines, often adding audio elements to visual experiences. Nguyen's music and sounds have appeared in many international exhibitions, including the public art initiatives Into Thin Air. As a composer for moving image, Nguyen has also worked on music compositions for short films, including Long Departure, directed by David Ellis. Welcome, Nguyen. Do you want to say hello to the audience?
Hello.
Hi, welcome.
Are you here?
Okay, so next up, we have Ida Rija, who is a CEO and co-founder at Sochware, a tech company working to solve world issues through emerging technologies such as artificial intelligence and Internet of Things. She's the winner of Microsoft Imagine Cup 2018 Artificial Intelligence and recipient of Women Leaders in Nepal by CMO Asia. As an educator, she is passionate about training children, youth, and the elderly to engage with new technology, design thinking, decision-making, and many more. She mentors female tech enthusiasts from their career in the industry. She is devoted to solve problems for industries in Nepal through new technologies. Welcome, Ida. Do you want to say hello?
Hello. Thank you for having me here. I look forward to this amazing session.
Welcome, Ida. When I'm at work, I make for people. When I go home, I make for myself. This is Kiati, who is a senior communication designer at IDEO in Munich, where she brings clarity, movement, and identity to the intangibles. By night, she wears the hat of an independent visual artist, experimenting with AR, 3D animation, and exploring the edge of graphic design. She was named as one of Print Magazine's 15 new visual artists under 30 in 2017, and her work has been recognized by Wild, Vice Communication Arts, Fast Company, Creative Review, and West, and We Present, to name just a few. She has had the opportunity to work with Samsung, Print, Apple, WeWork, and the list just goes on. Welcome, Kiati.
Hi, so nice to be here. I'm here. Hi, super nice to be here. Thank you.
Thank you so much, panel members. I will start with the first question. The first question goes to Ida. Are you ready, Ida? I'll start with you. You have been awarded many awards as a tech entrepreneur. How did you become a creative entrepreneur, and was it a very smooth journey for you?
Thank you so much for the amazing questions, Zin. For this, I'd like to share a bit of my experience I have had so far in this sector. Initially, I started off in this field because as a child, I was always interested to work on computers. And for me, the computer box CPU that we used to see as a child was just a black box where everything was very much different, and I wanted to solve issues out from there. That's how the computer interest really started off. And from there, as I graduated from high school and then to the bachelor's, I thought of doing something that I was interested in, and then I got into electronics engineering. That's how I started the journey. But I've always been someone who is much into computer science and creative arts, designing and stuff, right? So from there, back then, when I started working on different projects on electronics, on software development, the journey was a lot difficult because in Nepal, I'll get back to the scenario of Nepal. So basically, for when we talk about careers pursued for higher studies for girls is something like health. So if I say I want to study engineering or I want to be into computer fields or IT, I used to get a lot of questions. Is it really for you? Or would your brother not be better at that than you? Why do you not choose some other fields? Why do you not go into medicine? Because by nature you're caring. So were the kind of comments I used to get. But thankfully, I had a very supportive parents who supported my decision. And then I started my career. In initial days of the career, I wanted to solve issues that existed throughout Nepal and Asia in specific because most of us live in similar scenario. Uh, for us to start off, it was agriculture on our primary focus. Uh, I had an idea of developing an IoT device from where farmers could regulate their entire farmland, and that was really initial stage idea. With that, we came up with a company, Sochware. There was a long process of registration, and specific for girls. I had two co-founders, males, and I was the only female in the team. Initial days when I used to go to the government offices to register the company or for any other purpose, like I had people telling me, went in front of them and said like, hey, I came up here for registration of my company, and they used to ask what kind of company is it. They used to run through the documents, and when it was specific for technology, they used to look at me in big doubts. Are you sure? Like they used to give me face kind of thing, like, are you sure? Kind of face, right? So that was the scenario in there. And even in many stages, like when I go to talk to clients, when I go to talk to different people, after discussing through business deals, the next sentence that I most of the time hear is, I think now we need to talk to the tech guy of the company who would be carrying this out. So I used to laugh a lot initially because, yes, you're talking to a tech guy, and that's me, and I'm a girl, so that's completely okay. So these were the kind of initial scenarios that I had to run through. I have also had other experiences, such as when I was in class at my university among 40, there used to be 8, very less number of girls. I come from all girls school, and going into bachelor's where most of the uh, classmates were males and only few females. So our voice was a bit unheard, even through question answers. Whenever we used to raise our questions through different topics, I used to get kind of look from professors. Are you trying to be smart, or are you trying to be over smart? Some that kind of looks I used to get. It was really difficult because for me, especially coming from Nepal, where women's and their voices are really less heard, and we need to fight a different battle out there just to make our voices heard. Forget about the career, just to make our voices heard. It has been a very tough ride, but what went good was support from people around and the confidence that I had. So these were the kind of difficulties that I had to go through. And well, there was not just difficulties. There were people who supported the entire vision I carried within myself, and group of people who supported the cause I was trying to do. So today, as I stand off here, the company has been working in Nepal for around 4 years, and we also have been training different other female and male students themselves, despite of gender discrimination, no gender discrimination in here. So we have been training different youths in field of technology, and especially when I go into classroom to give trainings of IoT or on presentation skills or anything as such, uh, even today, as this far as I have come, I still have 40 males and 5 females in my classroom, and the female voices that are in there are really low. Even while asking questions, it would be male students raising out their voices, a female would be hiding some.
Oh, I think Ida got frozen in space. With that incident, Ida, you're okay?
Yeah, can you hear me? Was I cut out?
Yeah, you were completely cut out. Do you want to just repeat your last statement, and then we might move on to Hiati for you to sort out your internet connection issue?
Definitely. Can you hear me now? Is it fine?
Yeah, it's fine.
Okay. So I'll talk about a bit of my classroom scenario where I go out to teach these days. It's been like 40 male students and 5 female students, same scenario as I was back in the university. And for me to engage female students in the technology topics as of today is like bringing out their voices, more engaging with them. And that's what needs my attention more rather than on technical stuff in there. You get the scenario, right? So it's that part of journey where we still have to push the female boundaries. One, also build up to the confidence. The same problem I had faced back then because of the societal restriction and society tagging us as well. Tech is not for girls kind of scenario. It's even same today as of my student, but we're trying our best to bring females into the digital era and bringing them more into technology. So that is a bit of my experience so far. And even today, as I see, Nepal has not much changed, but I'm glad that I can see many females out there struggling in themselves and pushing them hard and making themselves as a role model.
Yeah. Yeah, you're definitely a role model for many women in the region. I will pick up some of the stuff you mentioned in the second round. I'll come back to you. I just want to move on to Hiati, who's also wearing red. We've got a bit of a red theme here. As you can see, the entrepreneurial spirit exemplified by the color red. I just want to ask you, Kiati, we know that designers tend to think outside of the box, right? But you've never been in the box from judging from your CV. You've navigated a very successful career outside of your home country, India. You've also managed to balance your work life and your personal interests in cutting edge technologies in graphic design. How did you manage to break so many boundaries? Is it nature or nurture?
So I thank you for the introduction, and I just feel like I was very lucky to have gone to a school called Mirambika in New Delhi, where I was born, where the philosophy of the school was to help you discover what you're good at and what you love, instead of kind of prescribing it in the form of a textbook. And those years of and that experience has really helped me build a really great relationship to learning, which even lingers in my adult life now. And how that translates into my work is that I'm constantly teaching myself whatever I'm curious about. And as a result, it's kind of brought versatility into my practice. And I've just made sure that I take the time to experiment with stuff like typography and then catapulting to traditional graphic design and then to AR filters and then back to 3D animation. And because there's a problem of representation in of women, I just do make a conscious effort to make sure that I share back whatever I'm doing, and that has had really positive ramifications because a lot of diverse set of work and recognition has come back to me as a result of making sure that I show up and I am visible.
Yeah, I really like your take on how you give back what you've learned and really consolidate that experiences and share that amongst girls to empower them and through your own experiences. I think that's fantastic. Thank you. Let's move on to Nyon. Bring Nyon in. Are you there? Nyon, how did you navigate your career as an artist through your amazing work? Did you encounter similar challenges as the other two speakers did as young female artists working in, I think, an extremely competitive art market in Asia?
Hello, everyone. First of all, thank you so much for the kind words on my practice. So, an artist, my way of navigation in the artwork, I think it's mainly based on a self-tough approach and a lot of efforts to connect to the people who share the same interests and the same goals as mine. It's a very very challenging task for me, but I try to do my best as possible to scout for ideas on a daily basis to constantly connect to people both online and offline, and somehow that helps me navigate through the competitive environment in the music production field, in the audio production field in general, and in the sound design field in particular. And I think I share some of the challenges that other participants in the conference, and also the lack of resources for contemporary art in Vietnam in general, and for new media art in particular, because new media art, including my field sound arts, require a certain understanding of technology, and somehow it's not really available in the art environment in Vietnam.
Yeah, I checked out some of your amazing artwork, and I think, you know, your point about, you know, how to create that density of people, how to create a community of people who will share the same vision and be able to help each other out and help kind of build that peer review group for your amazing artwork. It's really important, but at times it could be present itself as significant barriers for advanced careers in these fields. So we can come back to that point as well later on. Just want to also give Nusa a chance to respond in the first round. Nusa, your project, Digital Arts Academy, was one of the rewarded projects from the UNESCO Sabrina Ho initiative, You're Next. As part of the technical training program, you've provided entrepreneurship courses for young women in your country. Why was it, do you think, so important for you to include this component in the initiative, in the project?
Thank you very much for very interesting questions. It was very important for us because in both countries, in Tajikistan and in Afghanistan, education and training in creative and digital industries and technical professions are limited. In the field of digital industries, people are either self-taught to take previous courses, access women for access for women to such kind of knowledge is drastically curtailed by social norms and traditional attitude to women's status and rights within the family and society. And parents often put more resources into boys as the future breadwinners and encourage their daughters to marry early, unfortunately, and usually through arranged marriage. And this leaves women with a few opportunities and often a bleak future without hope of economic self-sufficient. Also in Tajikistan, there is a stereotypical thinking about the fact that it is very difficult to find high-paying jobs in the creative and art culture industry, especially for women. By including courses on entrepreneurship in our program, we wanted to show that this is an area in which there is a huge potential and opportunity, that there is many ways to become successful in this area and make good money. Also within the framework of the project, there was an opportunity for the participants of our project to receive a grant for the implementation of their own project. As a result, 23 of 24 participants of our project applied to the grant, and 11 of them receive a grant, and they are currently engaged in the implementation of their project now. And also some of them earn money, because some of the project was the business project and some of was social project, and it was very good opportunity for them, and that's why for us it was very important to include these courses to our program.
Yeah, it sounds really amazing. And we will have the chance to hear a bit more about what your program did and how has the Sabrina Ho initiative helped women in your country through this program to get access to better training facilities to become involved in the creative industries. I think that's a fantastic warm-up for us, don't you agree? We've started the session really well, and I think we're ready to go into the second round to kind of delve deeper into some of the key building blocks for professional development for women in creative industries in our region. I think some of you have already mentioned in your first round of questions. I think Ida and Kiati both said how lack of resources and infrastructures maybe in these areas could hamper the development of creative dreams and careers for women in this area. So I want to bring you back in here, Ida, if you don't mind. I want you to reflect on your personal journey, which you have done already, but maybe focusing a bit more about the tech sector you're in, and to talk to what kind of support do you think are really essential for supporting young women in your country or in the broader Asia Pacific region who wants to be creative entrepreneur in the tech sector.
Thank you so much, Zing, once again. So let me reflect back to coming to like what are the support necessary. Let me drive back to what were the issues we have had been facing. I believe I'm not audible.
We can hear you.
Zen, can you hear me? Okay.
Yeah.
So let me bring back to what were the issues in specific in this field. So first problem that I would like to address is societal thoughts and the demarcation of what females should be engaged in, what females should not be engaged in. So we have a societal idea or framework that has already been built saying that tech is not for women, the thing of engineering and a think of creative field as a specific is not for women. So that has been a specific framework defined out there. So that has been initial problem. Second issue in here would be the restrictions that we have as a female itself. I am in my early 20s, and I have had a pressure of early marriage, of marriage at this age when I want to force my careers into better fields, right? So that was also one of the issues. So major issue I see in here is societal demarcation that we already have. Apart from that, we have restrictions like females going out for trainings, females going out for different sessions, and I have my relatives question me when I come late at home as well. So this has been something. It's not my parents, but my relatives asking my parents, "Why is your daughter late 8, 9?" So I work in a tech field. I have to be working long hours to finish out my projects, but making them understand that is really difficult. So first would be changing the mindset of people, which I completely understand is not a short-term thing that happens overnight, but takes time, and it's been a gradual change, but really slow in this area. Next thing would be setting out women-friendly environment, especially in offices. Like I have been having conversations on policies, company policies, women-friendly company policies, like leave for their periods or pregnancies, or having maybe a sanitary requirements inside the office, having a women-friendly areas where women could openly talk about what are the issues they're facing, maybe during their menstruation cycle, because that's also something that really affects us, right? Since there are very less number of females in here, it's the topic that's not mostly talked about, or even companies have not even had idea about what should be included. So we have been working in that kind of policy creations as well in here, because that is one of the basic requirement. And next, for societal, I think it is something like, if I say name a person who's working in tech industry in Nepal, for me, I would get a male image itself. So there are very less representation to which a female can relate to. Maybe myself, like I want to be a engineer, so who would I refer to as my role model, right? We have very less number of role models. So creating more role models and giving them more idea about what could be better way of going through, and giving one-on-one mentorship could also be an option. I'd like to share a short scenario I had to face back. I was giving training on IoT, and there were two females coming up to me and saying, "Ma'am, I really liked your class, but I'm not pretty sure where I want to head to." These girls were pursuing their career in IT. They were in third year, but till third year, they were not really sure about what was the exact thing they wanted to do. And I had conversation with them, and the thing they mentioned was, for other classmates in there, they could go outside and get in trainings on different sectors. They could explore themselves, have an internship. But for them, going back from college to home and coming back home late was a big restriction, because of which they could not really go out and explore their potentials, right? So bringing out those secure environment for women and building in protective culture so that they could open up to their voices and bring out their career interests and just train themselves could also be one of the good support that is necessary.
Wow, thank you so much. I've jotted down 3 key proposals, which I really think should go into a national consensus around what's needed to really improve or address these issues to empower women in our sector. And 3 of the things you mentioned, the women-friendly environment, and also representational issue about women mentorship, and also, the building a safe urban environment where women could actually be part of that kind of broader ecosystem. I think a lot of these things have been kind of touched upon by policymakers around the world, but somehow to address these, to really solve these issues requires more than just women themselves to overcome these particular challenges in societies. So thank you so much for sharing that. I've written them down, and let's bring those back into discussion, in particular in the second panel sessions where we will be talking about policy issues and frameworks. I now want to move on to Hiyati. Are you on standby as well?
I'm here.
Yati, tell us how you managed to find your foot in one of the world's design capitals in the world, in Germany. How important it is to your creative career development to be able to work amongst the best international creative minds at a creative collective like the IDEO in Germany. Would you say you'll be the same without traveling overseas to pursue your creative career? Would you have be exactly the same sort of person, creative person, remaining in India, do you think?
Definitely not. I feel like what's come out of having done some globetrotting is that being rooted in so many or multiple cultures gives you a broader understanding of cultures across borders, but also it gives you a greater insight into your own culture. So I've understood so much more about my Indianness and what I bring to, for example, a brainstorm as an Asian designer, just because I'm in an environment where people around me aren't. And another shy, introverted woman of color like myself, who's a glaring minority in a room, can still bring so much value and rich experiences into work is really gratifying to experience. I definitely wouldn't have been the same without having traveled and worked in different places across the world, because what's also come out of it is I've met people that have different lives and are working in different companies, and even working within IDEO where there's so many different nationalities working in the same company. It's it's helped me strengthen a really important tool in design, which is empathy, because understanding and being sensitive to other people's feelings and thoughts without having the same experience is at the core of human-centered design. So it's actually had a huge impact on my career.
Are you coming back soon, do you think, or are you going to stay in Germany for a bit longer?
I had this response noted out for the third question, but now that you ask, I definitely do see so much progress from the time that I left and moved to Germany to now. And even though I live in Germany and work out of Germany at IDEO, which is an amazing company, I also have ended up starting my own practice and I've continued to work with Indian clients. And that has become kind of a testing ground to see how much work I've been getting from Indian clients and how the value of design has grown over time. So I do see promise in this region and I do see myself coming back and working in Asia.
I think it's a great news to hear that there will be a bit of coming back of creative talents from the Europe or North America. And I think this is something a lot of Asian governments are really concerned about as they are kind of changing their industry structure from manufacturing-based towards creative industry-based industries. What's really lacking is talents more than anything else, I think. And you know, we always say there's no gender in talents. You know, girls and boys can be just as talented, but to actually attract female creative entrepreneurs to relocate and come back to work in Asia, I think there's a lot more thinking we need to put into place to create a pleasant environment, as Ida has just mentioned before, to really attract people coming back. And that's a great issue that we could explore further down the line. I want to now move on to Nyong. I want to ask you, I'm personally really passionate about visual art. I've been to a lot of contemporary art museums in Asia, and they're absolutely fantastic, wonderful. But I'm always curious about, is there such a thing known as career for Asian artists? Because often when I travel to China, for instance, a lot of artists somehow see art as a job, you know, it's a career rather than a way of life. So I just want to hear from you, when you graduated from the academy, is there support for you to continue your passion for art? How did you manage the transition after leaving the academy? And can you talk about some of the key works that have really defined your creative identity as an established artist in the past few years? You are muted, Nyong.
So I think I know that many artists in Asia and around the world consider artists as a full-time job. Some of them consider it as a way of life and keep a day job as usual. And some of them consider both. And I think I'm the one consider them both. I grew up in a musical family in Hanoi, and most of my family members are musicians and tour organizers and sound engineer. So we all consider artists as career, and we actually pay the bills from doing art and raising the whole. My dad was raising the whole family like that, touring and doing all the art stuff. So basically, we all agree that we consider art as a career. And for me, I also consider it as a way of life because artists doing art in general gives me a lot of freedom for expression. So that's it.
So did you manage to develop a network of like-minded artists as a community of support when you immediately graduated from the academy?
Well, yeah. Of course, I have to develop my support group one step at a time, both with local artists here and from other cities like Ho Chi Minh City or Da Nang, and also from the international sound art and ambient community. Also, the relationship with labels and music journalists, music reviewers, those are the important gatekeepers to help me with my career.
So do you want to also speak about your most recent works that you've done? How did you find your creative inspirations for these works, and how did you relate to the demand or expectations of Asian artists, especially female artists' work?
One of my recent work, yeah. One of my recent works that will be on display in a few days in Hanoi. It is actually a collaborative work with another visual artist here. Her name is Linh Chi Nguyen, and she's now based in Hanoi. And our work is focused on the history and the chase of lakes in Hanoi. Zora still in the city, and Zora has already disappeared. And she made like murals, paintings being displayed as an installation where I made the study of this work. And to begin with this project, which was actually 1 year ago, we began with a lot of research with the history of Lake in Hanoi from both academic sources like reports and books, and also from a lot of field trips where I collect most of my field recording material for this project. Then we've moved on to study about the architecture of the building where we display the work. It's actually an old building belonging to the National University here in Hanoi. So we had to study the architecture to make the layout of the work as efficient as possible. And then we move on to the production of this work with Chi doing the visual arts, the crafting, and me producing the sound design, recording instruments, mixing them with field recordings and additional sounds. And the post-production works, of course, mixing and mastering to make the final sound work into the ready to display form. And then testing the artwork in upcoming days when we are going to set up as a building and then exhibition.
Sorry, I have to ask you a follow-up question again. Keep throwing bombs at you, sorry. So do you tend to work with female artists, or does gender's not a problem for you in the arts field in Vietnam? Hello, Nhom? Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Could you repeat that again? Yeah, I didn't hear.
So I was trying to get a sense of, do you tend to work with female artists, or is gender not a problem for you, for your work?
I don't think gender is a problem for me, but here I tend to support female artists because it belongs to the minority in both the Vietnamese art scene and the international audio production scene.
Thank you so much. Now it's Nyosa's turn to respond to my question. Your project, Digital Arts Academy, was one of the rewarded. Oh, sorry, I've gone to the last one. So your project provides internship opportunity for trainees. And I think Ida also talked about this idea of women mentor women. So how important it is for young women, do you think, to learn from other women in creative industries with an established track record in making things happen?
Mm-hmm. During the implementation of our project, both in 2019 and 2020, the issue of gender balance among the trainers was very relevant for our project because it was very difficult to find female trainers, but hopefully we found. Finally, we hired photo and video editor female trainers for our project. Observing the process of the classes and participants, we realized that the female trainers are very inspiring for the project participants. When the participants see a living example of how a woman breaks stereotypes in the digital industry and succeeds, this is a very strong motivation for the participants. And when one woman sees that another woman has achieved success in the area to which she wants to devote her career, this inspires her, gives her very big motivation to develop in this direction for her. No longer seems as difficult as it was initially earlier. she begins to think, if she could, why can't I? So it is very, I think it is very, that's why it is very important for women to learn from another woman with the established industry experience. And that's why we try to found female trainer for our academy.
Yeah, thank you so much. What a great initiative. We've got some questions from the audience. I think this is a very big, broad question. So just raise your hand if you want to respond to this question from the audience. The question is, what do you think are the best ways for women to get career guidance within the workplace? What do you think they should who they should look for advice and how they should approach that? Ida, you go ahead first.
Yeah, basically for career guidance, specifically on tech, I believe whenever looking for guidance, it would not be a gender specific guidance mentor, but it would always be nice to have somebody who understands you. It could, for myself, I look up to people who have been working in the field itself. I just started with user experience design recently by exploring myself. So for me, a mentor would be someone working in a tech industry on the same field for over 2 to 3 years. Uh, the way 2 to 3 years or more, right? So it depends upon what kind of field you're trying to push through. But majorly, while going out and asking for help, it would be really nice if you could go out and show your work that you have already done or reflected upon and get back suggestions. That way, the feedback that we get in could be much better and streamlined. That's what I've felt in my personal experience.
Wow, that's very specific, actually. Thank you so much. It's a very detailed and specific advice to people who want to work in tech. And I think especially in the male-dominated workplace, to find the right person to express your aspiration and concern could be quite daunting. And I think, your Ida's advice is very, very good. And I hope you'll be able to pick up on that and be able to make the next move and the right move, hopefully. Any other panel members would like to respond to that? Hiati, have you ever asked for advice?
Yeah, I was about to raise my hand. Of course, I feel like my career growth has depended on advice, and because this question was about internal, I feel like you can have two kinds of mentors. One is someone who's a woman as well and has had the same kind of experience, and the other kind of mentor is someone who hasn't had the same experience, but it can be identified as an ally, and therefore can push your voices to the front and to leadership. The second way, outside of a workplace, which is a lot harder and can be a little chance dependent, is finding communities or collectives. So for example, there's a collective called DigiGal, which is a collective of trans, non-binary and female digital artists, because we're such a minority in that field. And we constantly give each other career advice, or even like, how much do you invoice? How do you break up an invoice? How do you speak to clients? If there's a new opportunity, you can share it with other people. And that's been really helpful.
Yeah, thank you so much. And that's quite interesting, isn't it? Because in your experience, it's kind of combined with various other kind of layers of culture value struggle, if you like, So it's not just about gender, but gender kind of intertwined with various other kind of conflicts of identity and culture in particular. So thank you very much for sharing that. For I think a lot of the people like me actually working in a non-Asia based work environment, how do you actually bring your identity out? How do you communicate that gender line when you actually felt more struggling with your race more than anything else? How do you then communicate the gender thing on top of that? I sometimes have to seek advice as well from senior women. We have women mentor programs in our university as well. So I think, yeah, going back to that first issue that Ida talked about, you know, what can be considered as a women-friendly environment, you know, it's a really complex issue. Nyon and Nyoza, do you guys want to jump in as well, or you just want to pass on to the next round?
I think
On?
we can pass to the next round.
Okay, cool. That's very, same with you, Nyoza, yeah? Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
All right, great. Thank you, guys. Mitch. So the next round, I want to ask you questions about the structural issues within the culture creative industries and some of the problems that women face, not because of themselves, but actually because the nature of the industries that they're in. So Ida, I will start with you again. Hearing so many news about the lack of gender equality in some of the world's most powerful tech companies in the world these days, including Apple, Instagram, Facebook, you name it, every single company, even when they have a female FOO, they still have significant gender inequality issues. So do you think there are structural challenges for the tech sector to address this particular issue? And how does Asian companies or Asian societies compare to developed West in addressing this particular issue?
Thank you so much for the question once again. Yeah, like problem with structure that we have had so far in tech industry is one of the reason, as I can mention, which states very less number of females. Is we see on statistic around companies start up with around 30% of women as employees, and in the senior role they're around 10%, and if we look into a leadership role they're not even 1%, right? So in these kind of structures that we have been working on, it's a bit difficult scenario, but I found it interesting to see that as compared to the global tech sector workforce, which is around 28%, and for Asia it's 32, pretty much higher and better as well, right? So I believe, according to statistic that by research done by Boston Consulting Group, Asia is a bit higher when we talk about the workforce, but tech sector is something that overturns turns over overnight, right? There could be something I'm working on right now, and tomorrow morning as I get up I see new announcement coming up and I need to rework on what I am doing. So for the same, if we look into the study or the students that are enrolled inside technology education, as of now, there is comparatively less number of female students, and the market out there is looking for more tech resources, right? The opening for jobs and people looking in for tech specialists is growing in huge number, while students that are pursuing the education, female is really less. So by this, I could also predict that at the end of the few years, in the long run, females out there working is going to go down. It's going to go down, which is not a good scenario. So structurally, if we have to improve on different sectors, yes, structural importance could be there. I also give training on I'm Remarkable. I'm one of the facilitator. And while I have been giving training on different sectors with female staffs from different organizations, what I have felt is from their voices, when we talk about promotions, if there's opening inside an organization, a male with same skill set is more likely to apply for the position rather than females, because females are more tend towards achieving what they are actually doing rather than pushing forward. And there's lack of confidence, or how would I term that? Lack of yes, I'm capable enough, or maybe something like I'm good enough for that. So male tend to believe I'm good enough for that little faster than female do. So that is what studies have found out. And also I have faced throughout my training sessions as well. So if that is something we could work on, and structurally, if we could promote people on with initiations like I Am Remarkable, this is from Google, and different tech companies have also been helping out. So these kind of sessions could be helpful in there.
Yeah, I think I definitely agree on the fact that males are more likely to apply for senior positions than women within big organizations. But often I hear voices from other people who kind of put this back to me, reasoning such proposal as to why women should be in those positions. You know, the question is, have these women made the organization better? Because we know that the Facebook FOO is a woman, and you know she's very famous, very powerful. But Facebook has been one of the worst performance in terms of gender equality and various other kind of ethical issues. You know, in terms of its performance, are very, very appalling. Facebook. So, how would you respond to a question like that? You know, have women really been able to solve the problems and make the organization better?
Definitely. For this, I have had one of the research paper. I really don't remember the source right now, but I remember going back, and that was a very interesting fact. Like, apparently, a women-led company historically have performed 3 times better than the male-led company. Right? I've seen that. Especially in tech industry, we have one good tech company based in Nepal, Lockpoint, her female-ish CEO, and I have had chance to have conversation with employees in there. So, in contrary to males, what I have found out different, this from my personal experience. What I have found out different is that women are more empathetic towards the employees, and they tend to listen into more, like we have this strong female emotional sense, because of which the environment that we work on is comforting as compared to male counterpart. And also, there in these kind of environments, females tend to understand the voices more, apart from the gender voices, also into the work environment voices. So definitely, a company working with females is more likely to turn better. I could also relate this to as a female role we look into as a house good caretaker. Since birth, we have been, especially in Asia market, like since birth we have been nurtured towards being a feminine character with caring nature, looking after brother and sister. I think Kathy can relate this to me, since India and Nepal share the similar culture, right? So my brother, in one part, he would be more carefree, while I would be more responsive and responsible through my initial childhood days itself. So I found that within me itself, because the nature that we hold is a bit different. And same goes while working as well, because the nature does not go away.
Yeah, it's definitely a deep-rooted culture problems for many of us working in the creative industries. So, Kiati, I want to bring you back in here again. I think I might have mentioned this question in passing already in the last round, which is about this issue of creative female women and having to leave the region to pursue their creative career and ambition. Do you really think that there's nothing we could do about keeping and attracting these women in Asia?
I feel like it can be broken down into, the problem can be broken down into two main things. One is value and representation. I'll talk about the first one because value is directly related to design and entrepreneurship, and has more to do with the nature of the industry than the gender exactly. So specific to my industry, the definition of design, in my experience of working outside, is just a lot broader. Design isn't merely seen as a decoration. So at IDEO, for example, we've worked on projects ranging from constructing curriculums for the UAE government to reimagining the future of mobility. So it's been so wide, and design is seen as a creative problem solving, and it is valued as such. And by value, I mean appreciated, understood, and compensated for, which is often why people leave for outside, because you get more out of having a job of a creative. And but like I said in the previous response, that from the time I've moved to Germany to now, there's definitely been a huge improvement of how India sees design, and it sees what design can do and how it can have a positive impact. The second aspect is representation, and I think I'd be echoing a lot that people have said already. Yeah, I think even Neoza said the same thing. That you can't be what you can't see, and it's so important to be able to see the kind of people that you'd hope to be. And I've personally been really lucky to grow up around strong women, but sometimes that isn't enough, because you need to see people like you, especially in positions of leadership in your industry. And only a few years back, I feel like I've discovered and come to admire so many Indian female artists in the field through online communities, like I mentioned, and communities like Girls Club Asia. And the big learning from this experience of feeling like there's nobody to finding out that there's so many people is that there isn't a shortage of women in visual arts. It's just that they receive far less visibility, which is why I said, when you asked me about my career, I said I try to make sure that I'm visible, because that has such an impact on my career and also on other people's career. And while this isn't unique to our region, but it is unfortunately a little more severe here. Sorry, long answer.
No, I love the answer. It kind of breaks down into two critical issues, which I can really feel them in my own experience as well, especially that question of value. And I think that is not actually to do with gender or any kind of biases. It's actually to do with the nature of creative industries itself. It's been pushing towards this highly commercialized setup that people actually, a lot of the creative people have been forced into compromise their creative vision for the business end of the creative industries. And losing that creative value is quite a big problem. And without that, I think it's actually very hard for us to confront some of the other social culture issues in the creative industries. And that's why actually CCI, our sector, is one of the most unequal field in relation to gender representation. When you think about that, it's actually not just a gender issue. It's actually to do with the fact that culture itself has lost its connection with its fundamental value in society. And that's something I think we need to really pay attention towards, because only with that we can then begin to address some of the other issues like gender and race. Thank you so much. I love long answers. I think that brings out, it gives us the chance to unpack some of these dense ideas that we had. But I do have to move on to Nyon. So with Asia's growing, as we were talking about, the growing importance of Asia's creative economy in the world, I think Vietnam and other governments like China, South Korea, both push really hard towards creative economy for their future growth. How important do you think the role of arts and culture would be in the region as it kind of, forging ahead with a different vision that it started with? So it's not about manufacturing, it's not about agriculture, it's culture. So how important do you think arts and culture would be, and what you as an artist would be able to find a space within that push towards creative industries in the future?
I think the people in the creative industry are a very important part of the economy, because they not contribute by doing their job, but also they are also a source it's a little bit like tourism. They bring out the cultural significance of the country. So I think that can contribute to the economic by a wide range of activities apart from the small scale one like exhibition or workshops, but also activities like in the long run, like collaboration project with different organizations like governmental museum, contemporary art space, university, and that also open up chance for artists to enter the education field, because I feel like the educational part of the art scene is very important, because we, the artists, cannot survive alone. We also need an audience to build a community. So I think the role of the artist in the creative industry in the future is also an educator for apart from their small circles and small community, but also the bigger communities and other parts of society.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot more we could do for arts and culture. I think during COVID, many public art galleries and museums have been shut down or forced to shut down. And can you tell us a bit more about how the society actually, or in your immediate environment, have you seen a society coming together to rescue arts and culture in that context?
I think I could find a couple of examples, because artists are the one who are the most vulnerable during the pandemic, I think. And I've seen some very good support from the community for the art space and art scenes here, from crowdfunding projects for artists doing their live stream concerts, and also small donations to independent art space and other non-profit space for education. And I think one step at a time.
Yeah, so it's good to hear that the public in Asia actually see the value of arts and culture and trying to rescue it in time of crisis like this, because without the kind of will of the public, it's impossible to preserve visual arts. For example, what you're doing, Nyon, I think. Do you have anything to add to that, or you okay?
I think that recently we saw like a quote on the internet that imagine you said that art is not really necessary, but imagine you survive your quarantine without art. So I think art plays a very important role in both our personal, our social, and our economic aspect.
Yeah, definitely. I think Singapore government, for example, has been very generous in its provision of a rescue package for arts and culture. I wish other countries will copy the Singapore model as well in preserving arts and culture. Anyway, that's a side topic. We can go on forever. Let's bring Nyosa back in the conversation as well. Nyosa, as a project manager of Digital Arts Academy, what advice would you give young women who's pursuing their dream, creative dream in our sector?
I'm not very good in advices, but I would like to say that for those women who pursuing career in the culture and creative industries, so work will take up a lot of space in your life, and therefore the only way to be truly satisfied with lives is to do what you think is great, and the only way to do a great things is to love what you do. So your time is limited, so don't waste it living someone else's life, and don't be draped by dogma, which is living with the result of other people's thinking, and don't let the noises of others opinions down your own inner voices, and most important, have the courage to follow up your here and your intuition. Break the stereotypes. Don't afraid of anything, and follow your dream and love what you do. And remember, every little girl who looks at us today should know that the culture and creative industries is an area of a great opportunity. So you are next.
Yes,
Thank you very much.
that's a very positive note and to all of us. Just follow your dream. But we do have some concerns from the audience about that. So some of the audience member, one of the questions from the audience is that when do you think is the right time to turn your passion into a profession? So, at what point do you think, right, this has been my hobby, I've done it really well, it's time to move on? So how do you know? Is there a sign or some sort of signal that somebody give you that you suddenly realize that I could actually turn that into an entrepreneurial, adventure?
I think when you don't want to do something else, and when you really love what you do, it is the main reason. If you want to make your hobby your professional career, so first you need to love it. If you don't love what you do, you will never be succeed in this area. And if you know that you don't want to do anything more, I think this is a signal for all the women, or maybe people, that you need to follow this area, and you need to achieve all of your dreams in the framework of this area.
Yeah, thanks, Nyoza. There's another question about leadership positions. I think we talked about that issue a lot. So the question is, why do I want to take up leadership positions? What's the problem with just want to stay true to my creative practice, but without wanting to take up the leadership positions? Why is it important to be the leader? So any of you want to speak to that question? Do you consider yourself as leaders, all of you? Either you obviously are a leader. Are you always trying to be a leader, or have you been forced into that position?
Actually, leadership for me would be more like that are working together with me. So for me, leadership position was not forced into, it was my choice. It could be different from individual to individual, because some by nature some of us might have the zeal of standing up and talking to people, while some of us might like to sit down and just work on ourselves. So that's completely dependent upon person to person. But for me, being a leader in a tech industry or inside my company or community that I lead in, I have been able to get involved with people and at least inspire life of few people and change that. So myself, working in here in the position, this defines the success rate, actually defines upon how good my team is performing. So being a female, it's not rather a gender thing to be a leader, but completely depends upon what kind of nature you hold. So that's for me. That's my personal opinion.
Yeah, thank you. How about Kiati? What about you? Are you in a senior leadership position within the organization you're working for?
I'm not. I'm a senior communication designer, but there are lots of levels to reach leadership. But I do feel like I have thought leadership. and I have leadership qualities. And responding to the first question, like, do you have to be a leader? I've asked that question myself as well, because when you do move on to different positions, your role changes and what you do on an everyday basis changes. And maybe I don't want to manage people. I just want to build my craft. So I think it's totally okay to not want to reach a specific position, but it's still important for us to have role models there and to make it easy if you did want to become a leader, and create the infrastructure and the atmosphere of inclusion, essentially, in a workplace where, if you do have a desire to go up the ladder and have that role of managing people and be in important conversations, it should be easy to do that.
Yeah, thank you. And how about Nyon? I know that artists always work alone. So do you have any people under you for leadership guidance? Do you have to manage a community of people or somebody you work with?
I think I joined quite a lot of collaborative projects during the past year.
Mhm.
So somehow my work is not like 100% alone, but like 50% of alone and 50% of working together with people, organizers, musicians alike, visual artists, and other technicians. And somehow some in some case I am forced to be the project manager, which is not actually my main appetite, but like I have to do it anyway. So it's a little bit hard for me because I'm not really used to the admin tasks. But in the end, it got smoothly because we somehow we comes from very different fields, but somehow we have the same passion and interest for art and the curiosity to learn from each other. So in the end, we form some very good teams to work on our projects.
Yeah, absolutely. I understand that feeling of being forced into doing admin roles, being filling timesheets, managing sessional staff. Oh my God. But I think it's less about a time-consuming task that you have to perform.
Yes.
It's also about exploring different types of work and engaging with a broader community who you work with. Extending that knowledge of the ecosystem, if you like, that you.
Yeah.
So I do, think if you can, you should pick up the opportunity to lead, at least in part, or lead with somebody else if you feel like it's a bit of a challenge for you. Lead with somebody else and learn from other people's leadership skills. I think it's really important. We talked a lot today. Thank you so much for all of your response to that question. The next question coming in, I thought was really interesting. Kind of follow up from the last question about getting into these more time-consuming roles, like called management admin, right? So once you become a bit more involved in the running of a business organization, either small, medium, or large, you're likely to have to sacrifice some of your personal time. So how do you balance your creative career? In your case, Hiati, it's about pure creativity, design, and so how do you balance that creative career passion with your personal life? Do you still get time to go out for a beer with your friend somewhere? Do you still get time to travel? Do you have paid leave, that kind of thing?
Is this question directed to me just because I heard my name?
Go ahead. Yeah, I'm just tagged on you because I thought you look like somebody who enjoy life a lot. So how do you balance life with your career?
I think there are two approaches to your career. One is where you love what you do and it becomes your passion, but it also becomes your purpose, like why you exist in the world. And then it's a little hard to really draw a line between what you do at work and what you do at home, but it helps to define what the role of it is. So something that you said in the biography of mine was, when I'm at work, I make for people, and when I'm at home, I make for myself. The other way to live is just to see even creative work as work, and to end it at 6 o'clock and go back home and lead your normal life. And that's totally okay. I think it's totally okay to see your creative work as a job and only a job, because it does lead to a balanced life. And I think that's the most important thing.
Yeah, that's great advice, wise advice. Nyosa, you've got lots of management skills. What would you say to that question? How do you balance the job with your personal life? Oh, Nyosa hid away. Ida, do you want to then come in then?
Definitely. Like for me, especially balancing in between professional life and personal life has been a bit difficult journey because I'm working as a startup. So what I basically tend to do is, since this is also my passion, I find myself dreaming about what I work. I find myself thinking about what to do the other day and what kind of problems I would be solving, what are the issues. But for me, I really love traveling. I love engaging with people. And the balance that I try to create is I make sure that I go out at least once in a month, but due to pandemic, that has not been possible. Nepal is a beautiful country. We have a lot of place to travel. So I get lucky to go on bike rides. And for that, I just separate out my weekends or such time so that I can get that myself. And other witty thing I try doing is, since I like to travel and meet people, I also tend to make my training sessions out of the place I stay so that I get to travel along with my work. So that's how I have been trying to balance in things, but I love what I do, so it's completely fine.
So there's a saying in Asia, in the tech sector, saying you work something like a trio of numbers, like 966 or the 977. So you start working at 7 o'clock in the morning, finish at 7, and you work 6 days a week. Please tell us that's not you.
That's me, a part of me, because I work from early 7 and I get back home late, as I mentioned earlier as well. But in midst of the work, I try to find in time so that I can meet my friends, I can go out, especially travel. Could be a bike ride, could be a long distance hike or trekking as such.
Yeah. It's good to see that you've managed to create a balance in your personal life with work. You know, I know it's really challenging for the tech people as well. So yeah, keep up the yoga, the gym, and the hiking or whatever you do. Just enjoy doing those kind of things. Nyon, are you 24-hour workaholic?
These days, almost. But I like it's freelancing is a little bit like sessional work. So sometimes it's just like a few hours per day, but sometimes it's almost like 24 hours a day.
Yeah.
A little bit imbalanced, but I'm just trying to do my best.
Mm-hmm. Thank you guys so much. I think we lost Nyoza. I think she's got some internet connection issues, so she couldn't really join us. So I'm going to wrap up the session now. I think we had a fantastic conversation this afternoon about this issue of female creative entrepreneur practice. I just want to thank you so much for your inspirational stories. I felt that the conversation we had, some of the things we talked about, we could talk about them forever.
Yeah.
We should definitely find a space, go into a pub and have a few drinks and keep talking about these issues. And I'm sure your stories would inspire women in, hopefully in the audience today, but also other women out there who may be hesitant about this idea of becoming a creative entrepreneur, to now heard your story, be able to give it a go. So for the audience, if you want to find out a bit more about some of the projects, personal profiles and artists' work of participants' panels in this afternoon's session, please do check out their online profiles and some of the regional and UNESCO support initiatives as well that might be helpful for you to kickstart your passion and turn that into a profession. Please be sure to check out the guest's website, the UNESCO Resilient Art website, or use your privilege for being in the audience member, a very dedicated audience member today, to leave your comment in the chat area so that one of our very helpful UNESCO Bangkok office team can be of your aid and help you with your questions. And with that, I will close the first session. Please stay with us as we won't take a break, but you can stretch and waggle your toes and knees if you want. We won't be taking a break before our second session, but I will pass the floor now to Dinah from UNESCO headquarters to show some short videos from the You Are Next projects. Here you go, Dinah.
Hello, thank you so much, Dr. Chin. And thank you so much to our inspiring women, Ida, Kiati, Nyoza, Nyon. Thank you so much for all the advice. It was really helpful, and for sharing your journey and how you overcome all the challenges and break the stereotype to become a successful entrepreneur and artist. I'm sure that your experience will inspire the audiences to get involved to the development of the digital creative economy. And as Dr. Shin mentioned, talent has no gender. So you are the example that it's possible and for women to work in the creative industry, which is also one of the reasons of the UNX initiative. So before we move to the next session, as mentioned in our introduction, UNX is first of all a UNESCO initiative supported by Mrs. Sabrina Wu to promote gender equality in the digital creative industry. In 2019 and 2020, we trained more than 100 young women under the age of 40 from Mexico, Palestine, Senegal, Tajikistan, and Afghanistan. And they've gained new knowledge, technical knowledge, and also entrepreneurship knowledge. And today, they would like to share their experience and deliver a special message to Miss Sabrina.
Hola, soy Lorena Jauregui, tengo 30 años, soy mexicana.
معكم آية المتربيعي 21 سنة من قطاع غزة فلسطين.
Меня зовут Ибрагимова Амира, мне 22 года. Я сама родом из Таджикистана, из города Душанбе.
لفتتني جملة بمقابلة لسابرينا هو بتقول فيها U40 is not a women's club. It's an equality club for both men and women. We must support each other regardless of gender.
لما صار عندي أكثر من 5 أفلام أنا عملتها أوريدي في أيام المسرح في برنامج ويف صار عندي بورتفوليو قوي بقدر أقدم فيه.
L'impact que ça a dans ma vie, ça va me permettre aussi de pouvoir faire mes enregistrements tout seul et pourquoi pas mixer certaines voix. Et ça va me permettre aussi d'aider d'autres personnes qui n'ont pas la possibilité.
Hashtag Be Your Voice dejó en mí, en el ámbito profesional, algo muy impresionante porque entonces esto es una herramienta igualmente potente o hasta más potente que la que había estado utilizando. Entonces, para mí es abrir un nuevo camino para experimentar y crear nuevas experiencias y nuevas narrativas audiovisuales.
Par rapport au projet digital, j'ai suivi 2 parcours. D'une part, le parcours technique, au cours duquel j'ai appris de nouvelles techniques d'animation DJing.
إنه أول فيلم وثائقي صنعته كان ضمن تدريب ويف. هذا الفيلم راح كتير مهرجانات. إلى جانب هذا المهرجان دارا شارك في مسابقة Girls Impact the World يلي بتقيمها مؤسسة كونكت في أمريكا. هذا المهرجان بيكون يعني السنة 2019 هو فاز دارا بهذا المهرجان.
أحب أحكي رسالة لصابرينا هون. أول إشي شكراً، ثاني إشي أنت ريادية ملهمة، ثالث إشي التمكين في المجال الرقمي مهم للنساء. أنت خليتينا نعرف إنه إحنا إلنا صوت وهو مهم وبيفرق كمان.
Tengo un mensaje para Sabrina Ho. Te confirmo y te agradezco, porque lo que haces es muy importante para muchas mujeres alrededor del mundo. Sin tu apoyo yo no habría podido acceder a estas tecnologías.
Je pense que si on avait beaucoup plus de Sabrina Ho qui finance des projets comme celui-là, ce serait très bien pour la jeunesse.
Dear Sabrina Ho, you are a role model for all the women around the world. Thank you so much.
Sí, pues quiero agradecerle infinitamente por haber creado este espacio.
So thank you, Sabrina Ho.
Sabrina, شكرا.
Thank you so much.
Sabrina Ho, أول إشي شكرا por todo, realmente le agradezco. Gracias.
Welcome back, everyone. Hope you enjoyed the video and managed to relax, do a bit of yoga, stand up, have a little walk around, have a cup of tea, manage to relax whilst watching the video. It's my pleasure to now introduce the second session this afternoon, which is gender equality in national culture policies and representation of women in decision-making positions. I think this is really timely topic for us to consider because gender gap has been a significant problem in the CCIs around the world, as we all know. In particular, I think in developing countries, where we have to really confront some of the deep social and political culture reasons associated with these traditional societies. And women are not only underrepresented in general workforce in creative industries, there's also significant underrepresentation of women executive positions within the creative industries, causing substantial gender pay gaps in CCI, according to the 2018 UNESCO Global Report, Reshaping Culture Policies. So the second panel for this afternoon is hoping to synthesize diverse views from women working in policy sector, in NGOs, in public and private sectors on this very, very important issue. So I hope you stay tuned to be part of this conversation as you have done in the first panel. So in this panel, we also have four fantastic, excellent guest panel members. I will introduce them, and as I introduce you, please feel free to unmute yourself and say hello to the audience. So first up, we have Diane Herdiani, who is the founder of Kapon Hallerman Foundation. She's active as a board member and a facilitator in their participatory educational programs. Graduated in anthropology from the University of Indonesia, Diane is building and maintaining collaboration with groups of young people aged between 15 and 18 from diverse backgrounds throughout Indonesia. Kampong Halaman Foundation has been given the International Spotlight Award from the National Arts and Humanities Youth Program Award 2011 in Washington, D.C. They're the only youth community group in Asia to have achieved this honor. Diane, are you there? Feel free to unmute, say hello. Hi, welcome.
Hi. Thank you for having me here.
Thank you. So second, I want to introduce Dr. Ha Nguyen, who is a researcher for the Vietnam National Institute for Culture and Arts Studies. She has been involved in many national and international projects, supporting the development of culture and creative industries in Vietnam. She was involved in a UNESCO-funded project titled Development of Mechanism and Appropriate Legal Framework for Financing the Culture Industries and Activities and Encourage Investment in the Culture Industries in Vietnam. Dr. Ha is also a core team member for Vietnam's National QPR report on the implementation of the UNESCO's 2005 Convention. She has been director of Vietnam National Institute for Culture and Arts Studies since 2017, providing a diverse arts program for the public in Vietnam. Dr. Ha, are you there? Hello? Ha, are you there? Hey, you can unmute yourself and say hello. We can't hear you. I think you're muted. If you could just unmute yourself. Yep, you good. Say hello. Hi.
Hello, hi. It is Ha.
Hi, lovely having you here. Thank you, Ha. Welcome. Yeah, now you can mute yourself again. Sorry about the fiddly of Zoom. Now we have to all get used to Zoom in and out constantly. So the next guest is Jane Sloan, who is Senior Director, Women's Empowerment Program with the Asia Foundation. In this role, she provides intellectual and program leadership for the Asia Foundation's Empower Women and Advance Gender Equality in the Indo-Pacific. Jane's previous roles include Vice President of Programs, Global Fund for Women in San Francisco, Vice President of Development, Women's World Banking in New York, and Executive Director of International Women's Development Agency in Australia, where I come from. Jane is a Senior Atlantic Fellow at the Inequalities Institute at London School of Economics and Advisory Board Member at LSE's Centre for Women, Peace and Security. Welcome, Jane.
Thanks so much. Really lovely to be with you all.
Welcome. Thank you. The last but not least, Kay works at the intersection of art and technology to engage and educate youth and communities on the importance of protecting our planet. Every day, she leans on her past experience as an international digital media lawyer, where she gains a deep interest in emerging technology and its power to revolutionize the way we live and work. In addition, as head of arts at the British Council, she understood the role of the arts in offering new ways of connecting with each other, and she spearheaded the groundbreaking Memorandum of Understanding with the Singapore International Foundation. In funding Mesh Minds and its non-for-profit arm, the Mesh Minds Foundation, Kay focuses on enabling public-private partnerships to empower creators in the Asia-Pacific region to harness art and digital technologies to promote the Sustainable Development Goals. Wow, what a lineup. I've just spent a lot of time reading out your bios. You've achieved so much. Incredible lineup of panel members this afternoon. So getting into our questions, I want to start with you, Jane, if you don't mind. I think we have all become so familiar now this year and also in the last 4 or 5 years with this idea of gender equality through media, but also maybe from stories, experiences we had very close to our own experiences. But have we really made any progress globally? As the Senior Director of the Women's Empowerment Program, what concrete actions have your organization put in place to foster women's participation in the sector, in the creative industries?
Thank you. Well, look, I think we've got a long way to go. I think if you just look at the film industry, in the history of the Academy Awards, only one woman has won an Oscar, and that was Catherine Bigelow for the 2009 film, The Hurt Locker. Since the first Academy Awards in 1929, only 5 women have been nominated for the Best Director Award. and research from the Annenberg School of Communication and Journalism, when they were researching the top films from 2007 to 2017, there were only 43 different film directors over that 10-year period for the 1,100 films that were produced, and only 5.2% were Black or African American filmmakers, and only 3.1% were Asian or Asian American filmmakers. So it does really point, and that's in one industry alone, but it really does point to the fact that we have a long way to go. It's really for those reasons that at the Asia Foundation, where we have an Asian Development Fellows program and also a Loose Scholars program, that are both designed to support emerging leaders to elevate and deepen their leadership and to have access to professional opportunities, including in the cultural and creative industries. And recently, our Women's Empowerment and Gender Equality team collaborated with our Leadership Exchange team and our Books for Asia program to create a new proposed program called Creative Asia. And we've created this in recognition that the cultural and creative sectors are growing in complexity and in importance in Asia. With more than half of the global population and some of the fastest growing countries in the world, we know that Asia is being transformed into a phenomenal socio and political culture in this time. And in many countries in Asia, these changes are reflected in the cultural sector by a strong appetite for cultural consumption, a search for cultural identity, an explosion of contemporary artistic expression, and a massive growth of cultural infrastructure and attention to the cultural industries. And this, of course, includes film, where Asia is now the genesis for half the world's film, and China recently overtook the United States and Canada as the most lucrative film market. However, there's a dearth of women leaders at the top of this field in the creative industries, whether it's composers or conductors or filmmakers or directors or choreographers or photographers or illustrators. So if we want to ensure a more diverse women's imagination, innovation, creativity, game-changing ideas and perspectives can infuse and inspire and challenge new generations of young people across Asia, then we need to invest in making this happen. And so what we've proposed is a new leadership program to support cutting-edge women leaders in Asia working in the cultural and creative industries to access fellowship opportunities that will connect them with sponsors, mentors and resources to propel their leadership and their profiles and their vision to new places. And we've coupled this with a book lab to produce books that feature diverse women as leaders in the cultural and creative industries as well, so that, to the earlier point, girls can see what they want to be. And so hopefully, we can find and work with a range of private and public sector donors to scale this at the level where it can really have the impact that's required across Asia. And so that's what we're working towards in the time ahead.
Wow. I can't believe there's so many new things you've created, and I hope the audience and also through this program that more and more women in Asia will be able to access the infrastructure that you're trying to create in Asia, the Asia Foundation. And I think I agree with you. It's a melting pot right now in Asia, where there's so many young women actually are so kind of ready for the challenges to create a new pathways, new identities, which were completely different to not to their older generations, but to all the Western influences, that they have been brought up in part. But many of them have tried to overcome that kind of expectation from the West, but trying to create new pathways that represent genuine, original Asian identity. And I think you are right in the center of becoming a really important platform for those creative expressions to be heard and to be seen, really.
Yes, I did I'm an Atlantic Fellow with the London School of Economics at the Inequalities Institute, and I did my research on how Asia-Pacific filmmakers and artists are confronting inequalities. And it's really phenomenal when you look at the work of women creatives and women filmmakers in terms of how they're confronting inequalities and how they're exposing inequalities through their art and through their filmmaking, and really then changing the frame and changing the equation in how a new generation of young people are thinking about those issues and changing gender norms, which is just so critical at this time.
I will definitely pick your brain again when we come to the second round about this issue. I think it's so interesting of talking about Asia and to really come to terms with its own time, and it's the so-called Asian century. I think for a long time has been very much about catching up with the West. I think this is really right now the true sense of an Asian century, where Asian women are creating true creative pathways for themselves. It's such an important starting point for our conversation this afternoon. Thank you so much, Jay. I just want to apologize that I didn't give Kay a chance to say hello when I read out her CV. Do you want to say hello, Kay? Sorry. So I can move.
Hello. Yeah, super cool. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for having me. I apologize. It's late afternoons, need more coffee. So I will actually come to you later, Kay, if you don't mind. I want to bring out Dian first. Dian, your foundation has empowered many girls to have their say in a traditional society like Indonesia, where gender inequality has been a significant problem for many years. Can you share with us some of the key approaches your foundation has successfully implemented to encourage girls to express themselves more freely? You're muted.
Yeah. Thank you. Maybe I want to give a background first about what Kampung Halaman do with the program. Our foundation, our mission is like to pursue the youth group, especially girls between 15 and 18 years old, to develop their critical thinking in seeing their surrounding and their society with the participatory and collaborative method, using pop culture like film, music, mapping, art, writing, and many else. And then since 2006, we have traveled to a lot of transition area in Indonesia, mostly in a remote area. We met girls and work with them so they can find their own voice and to their problem. And then we facilitate them to do the research, to write their own story, and then express it on their kind of media. Then start to deliver their message among their friends, among parents, among teacher, government, so they can improve the life for better. But in our experience, based on our journey, we met so many girls with a lot of creativity talent, but unfortunately at the same time, we saw them fail one by one. Most of them like facing lack of family support and support from their close friends, and then usually creative girl that we met are the most expressive one among their friends, and usually they are the bravest to speak their mind. But that's the problem. Girls that we facilitated live in the conservative society, who built so many social and religious norms, boundaries for them. The society said that girls not supposed to be freely to act in the public. They're not supposed to present in a public space or speak their opinion, especially for adults. And sadly, in the end, they live with limited access of mobility. I'm not talking only for physical mobility, but also about knowledge mobility. So what we do since 2006, we try to put them out from their boundaries made by the society with the creative storytelling medium. so they can learn about identify themselves, who they are, what they want, and what's the problem in their society. And the most important is build a new capacity. I mean the media skill and literacy in digital world. Since the young people that we are facilitated is Gen Z, who born to be digital native in all economic level, family background. So hopefully they can start to have a dream and have a braveness to be what they want in the future. We in Kampung Halaman believe that creative sector has to be accessible for the girls and women from all background, not only for the girl and women with privilege who live in a good and well families. Since technology and gadgets now is more accessible and more cheaper, then we should reach more girls with diverse background to be a key player in this sector. And then how can we encourage this girl to express themselves based on our experience? First, absolutely necessary to have a safe learning space for the girl, safe from bullying, safe from stigma, judgment, safe from gender-based violence, especially, which all contribute to building their trust. Because from our research, like 8 from 10 girls that we facilitated, they experience the bullying or gender-based violence since they are 13, and then we put them as in the center of the learning process. I mean, this girl and their universe are expandable source on how we build our learning system, from making the module until how to implement the program. We always remind ourselves to confirm and ask for their consent. So consent is very important here. And we aware that this consent is could be changed every time. So we can adapt the program based on their consent. The third, this is also imperative to find out their need, so that any program being developed for this girl could better answer what is important for them, which hopefully will translate a commitment from them during the process. Like example, we always do a research before starting the program. We talk to them and do like a focus group discussion and depth interview. And then because when our education program is relatable with their life and their needs, then their commitment is something that we don't have to be worried in the future process. Like example, when we do a program with girls in some area, in many area, they always part of the group who like have a good commitment to finish the project. Like they are very persistent to follow the project until it's finished, and then they also very eager to do a reflection and evaluate the process among themselves, like that. And then the fourth, treat them as equal, always maintaining two-way communication, and then like we try to share the spirit of learning from one another. Like example, when I become a facilitator in one group, I always push the girl to share to each other rather than to ask everything to me as a facilitator, because we believe that girls' experience is very different, so it will be valuable for them if they share each other experience, and also set the objective and goal to achieve. Yeah, I think that that's enough first, Sin.
Yeah, thank you so much. It's great to hear a new kind of methodology being developed around how to really listening to girls. How do you bring their concerns into the heart of your intervention? So I look forward to discussing more detail about your program and how you approach this particular issue. Third up, I just want to give her a chance to talk about your experience in Vietnam as a policymaker and researcher. And Vietnam, as we all know, have experienced this sensational growth in creative industries in the past years. How significant is the contribution by female creative workers in this growth? And do you have any figures perhaps to share with us? And how important is it from the policy's perspective to address gender inequality for if they want to push towards a sustainable development future with creative economy?
Thank you, Singer. First, I would like to share a little bit about what Singer already mentioning about the development of the creative industry in Vietnam for last 10 years. So a cultural and creative industry was officially recognized widely in different sector, including public, private, civil society in Vietnam. I think around like just new is not for a long time compared with the other in the region or in the world. It's just around like 2004, 2005 when we start to have some kind of comprehensive research or program to study about the development of the culture industry development in Vietnam. And then it took us almost 10 years in order to have the terms of culture and creative industry, as well as the, how can I say, the related work of the artists and creative individuals, creative enterprise, or even the cultural workers have to be, how can I say, to be appreciated widely among different, like within the society as a whole, in different corner of the country, not just only focused in big city where people can easily see artwork or meet artists or going to the art or cultural events. And then not until 2016, when the National Strategy of Cultural Industry Development of Vietnam was approved by the central government. And together with that is a paradigm shift within the party, the Vietnamese Communist Party, in terms of recognize the value, economic value of the cultural resource of the nation. Before that, we think culture is something that we need to preserve, to protect, and commodification of culture is not good for the national identity or some kind of that. But then for last 10 years, we witnessed the significant change in the national approach. I mean, from the central government, from the party, and as well as from the provincial or city government, the way they see the role of the creativity for the development of the economy or society. We do have some statistics we'd like to share with you. Like I think we have around in 2018, we have around like 47, roughly, approximately 47,000 creative business and enterprise across the nation. We do not have the, how can I say, the number of the labor working in those creative enterprise or business because our national statistic system doesn't allow us to how can I say, to have that number. We hope in the future we can share with you more. And that is the one thing that we would like to share. And also, last year, we also calculate, we have another approach to calculate the GDP, the contribution of GDP of the culture and creative industry to the national GDP, which around like 3.61% of the 11 cultural industry account for within the national gross domestic product. And also from the other corner of the pictures, we also see the increasing number of the creative hubs, creative scenes, culture and art organization in Vietnam. In 2014, we only we mapped, when we did our mapping, we recognized around like 40 culture and art organization in Vietnam. I mean the independent, the private one. And then last year, the number increased to like almost 200. And then also we saw there's a lot of like network artists, creative people working together to create network locally or nationally. And that is really a positive trend that I would like to share with you. And I think from my perspective, I don't think the picture will be so as bright as that if we do not count for the contribution of the creative women. Yes, I think it also thanks to the tradition of Vietnam, our traditional culture and of Vietnam, which really appraised the role of women since the beginning of our nation up to like during a lot of fighting against the war, against the invasion, etc., etc. The role of the women leader always play a crucial role in our nation development. But also right now, many creative women, many female artists is working so hard and so they are so dedicated for and contribute so great for the development of the art and creativity in Vietnam. And among like 200 creative hubs, culture and art organization I just mentioned, I think around like 60% of them are led by women, creative or artists, or even more. And the key staff or the member of those organizations, I think will account for at least like 70% up to 80%. So yeah, so I think we do have the how can I say, the bright picture of the contribution of the women creative women to the development of the culture and creative industry in Vietnam for last 10 years.
Yeah, that's fantastic to hear. Hold that great thought, and we'll come back to that. I love to hear a sensational story about women rules the house and, you know, turn things upside down and, you know, interesting stuff happen. I think that's great. That's what we need to have more of. I just want to bring Kay in. Kay has been sharing with the group, with us, this fantastic, interesting project called Mesh Minds. And it was so interesting because you sent through some animation last night to the group. And I was actually told by my son who's watching it, was sneaking into my WhatsApp group and looked at the video, and he was quite excited about it, asking me about, what is that project? You know, why are you watching animation? Yes, I do creative stuff. So I just want to bring you into to actually just to talk about that project and also your position of working at the intersection of arts and technology. I think that's really interesting. Do you think that kind of approach provides a unique opportunity for us to address gender inequality?
Yeah, absolutely. And thanks for having me again. Gender inequality exists in the arts and technology. So very kind of sad to report that the New York Times said that a mere 11% of museum acquisitions are actually done by female artists. And at the same time, we're really still struggling with getting girls into that kind of STEAM scenario, right? So they're kind of like less than 20% of students are kind of female in going into those kind of hardcore science and technology situations for educating themselves, and so we are certainly kind of playing on the back foot, and there's a lot of work still to be done. I certainly think that we are trying to practice what we preach in terms of, we've got an upcoming exhibition where 50% are women, but we're certainly not there yet in terms of representation. What we have done quite interestingly, though, is we worked with the UN Environment Programme and UN Women, and we created an experience where an interactive poster came to life, and it tells you all about the work of Empower for climate change. So instead of the usual kind of, please look at our microsite, please read our brochure on this important topic, we were able to make an original artwork poster that came to life using augmented reality technology from Facebook, and very quickly tells you the key messages of what the work of Empower is in a really engaging way. You're then able to kind of tap through the menus and hear about the work of Empower, in moving pictures and kind of more in an engaging way. So yeah, we're kind of in the business of taking really important and complex topics and kind of peppering them with the magic of art, and also bringing them to life with augmented reality, injecting that level of interactivity in the hope that through doing that, the messages that we're trying to convey about environmental education, literacy, the importance of protecting our planet, are more memorable. And that's what we're finding, that this level, this kind of additional augmented reality layer that comes onto the real world really helps people to remember. And then once they remember, they're able to and be equipped to go and teach others. So that's kind of where we are at.
Fantastic. It's such a succinct way of explaining technology to people who had no technological background. And I think it just reminded me of an issue that in communicating this issue to a broader community, often, it's not the issue itself that people can't relate to. It's the way you communicate the ideas to the public that's really important. And what you've created or made us think about is perhaps if we change the way we approach the issue and be able to develop interactive method to engage with a general public about this issue, perhaps we will do more for addressing this issue of gender inequality than we have traditionally been doing. And I think there is a bit of silo issue in relation to addressing gender inequality. Women tend to feel like they need to talk to other women about this issue. But what you are trying to do here, I think it's quite interesting, is to broadening that conversation, the audience, if you like, for that message, and to really engage with that and be able to comprehend the severity of the issue and be able to work together as human beings, because it's a human issue. It's not just a women issue. I think that's really important for us to going forward in this conversation. That is great, good start. And with that, thank you, Kay. With that, I'll just move on to our second round of questions. Again, I'll bring Jane out to talk about some really important issues. Issues sort of we haven't we talked a lot about, again, we talked so much about this issue. It's just we haven't quite get that much forward from the past situation we found ourselves in. So I want you to talk about this issue of women's leadership, which has been a conversation we had in the first session. I think we all agree, nobody dispute the idea that women's leadership, really important, critical issue. But how do we really enhance women's leadership, especially in the culture sector?
Yeah, I agree. And I think that there really are too few female leaders. And two reasons for that are often given. One is that people tend to recruit in their own image. And so with the majority of leaders in the creative and cultural sectors being male, they hire men. And secondly, if there aren't many visible women role models for women, then it's harder for women to imagine assuming a senior leadership role. So the more women in senior leadership roles in the cultural sector, the greater encouragement this will give to other women believing that they can also assume these roles. And that includes capturing and making visible their exercising leadership, the act of them being senior leaders. So important here is for those people in positions of privilege to call out the issues and to help pave the way for diverse women to be involved in leadership roles in the creative and cultural sectors, and to be paid at the same level as men. And that requires, of course, a multi-pronged approach that's a combination of changing policies and laws to create that enabling environment, as well as incentives for women's leadership in the creative industries, particularly for the private sector, and combining that with social media campaigns and education in schools that promotes diverse women's leadership in the cultural and creative sectors, so that girls can see this as a viable career path for such leadership as well. There are some great initiatives that are happening to advance women's leadership, of course, and just to give you some examples in the film sector, since that's something I've been researching, these include the curated talent discovery platform of underrepresented creators called Free the Work, that was launched by a director called Alma Harrell in October last year. Other initiatives include the Topple List, which is a Google spreadsheet of diverse filmmakers, Film Fatales, which is a global community for female filmmakers to find opportunities and collaborate, and then the 4% Challenge, which was launched by Time's Up and the Annenberg Inclusion Initiative. And the 4% Challenge asks producers and actors to commit to a women-helmed project within the next 18 months. And major studios like Working Title and Universal have now signed on to that pledge. And then the rise in streaming platforms and the popularity of multi-episode series also seems to be opening up opportunities for female filmmakers around the world. And I think more broadly, the movements that we're seeing for change, like Time's Up, and also Black Lives Matter, is really helping to create opportunities for more diverse women's leadership in the time ahead. Another initiative that we organised at the Asia Foundation recently was an online STEM trilateral on behalf of the governments of the United States, the Republic of Korea and Japan, to focus on what's needed to increase women's leadership in STEM and in STEAM, and specific initiatives from both the private and public sectors for the time ahead. And one of the things that we've been thinking about at the Asia Foundation is the establishment of a STEAM equity fund, and an online centre for STEAM equity that elevates and invests in women's leadership in STEM and the arts, and STEAM and the arts. And with the impact of COVID-19 further eroding the gains that have been made in advancing women's leadership in STEM particularly, it feels like these initiatives are really timely and important. So I'm very happy to share more about that at some point.
Thank you so much for sharing with us all these fantastic initiatives in looking at different ways of empowering women. And I think it's just great to see a diverse approach. And I think that's really the key. It's not what we how many initiatives we create for empowering women and girls. It's actually about creating a different mentality, different culture, different communication strategies, and all these different ways of addressing the problem. I think we should look at that and see the effects or changes they make in addressing that particular issue. So thank you so much, Jane. And I hope our audience will take notes and write down those initiatives and be able to follow up after the event to look at the Asia Foundation and explore some of the programs in film and perhaps in other creative sectors as well to really engage with the potential opportunities and great initiatives being created for women and girls exploring creative careers in our region.
I might just add that you can watch the STEM Trilateral online. So we do have it on our website as well. And we're hoping to create a STEM network across Asia and the Pacific as well of girls and women leaders.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Be sure to check out the website and all the various links to those initiatives. Thank you so much, Jane. I want to bring Dian back into the conversation here. Indonesia was the main sponsor of the proposal for 2021, next year, to be declared as the International Year of Creative Economy for Sustainable Development at last year's UN General Assembly. So as a creative woman working in a country like Indonesia, have you witnessed a change of attitudes towards women entrepreneurs in the context of these policy shifts?
Okay, thank you, Jane. As a background, now Indonesia have like almost 17 million people working in the economic creative industry, and then more than 50% are women, and then the three biggest sector from this economic sector with the biggest income is from culinary, fashion, and craft, and they contribute more than 7% to our country income from this biggest sector. And because the role of the media now in Indonesia also exposing about the role of the women in this industry. For me, it's kind of changed attitude, especially for the society, because I work with young people. I see that nowadays the parents, especially the young parents, now have more awareness about to invest in girls. So they start early as possible when they're still in the because they're still in the tender age to start thinking and planning for the future. And then the parent also give their space to develop their personal expression, interests, hobbies, which will hopefully develop into dreams and field of expertise when they grow up. Because participation is easier when they're the one who want it, something like that. And for my observation about this issue, my note about this kind of change of attitude for me in the creative industry, I think is very important in building and developing empathy skill for young people as early as possible, since it is the real core of this creative sector, creative industry that we dream of correlate strongly to the impact. I mean, not just economically impact, but also socially impact. Then empathy is needed, is a soft skill that needed to enhance the social impact, especially for girls, because this will help inspire more girls not to be afraid to dream and build careers in this field. That's what I think. And also, empathy is also important to creating environment of women support women and girls support girls in this game. Yeah, of course, in this industry, competition is true, is part of the game, but with empathy, with the empathy soft skill, competition will not be seen as something that topless one another or worse scenario destroy one another, but where women can work side by side in their own field and expertise and enhancing their unique strength, particularly to their own. Uh, and the most important, in Indonesia, women can support women despite of their differences and diversity, because Indonesia is very huge and very complex. Then if the girl can choose to learn new things that will lead to their dreams and receive support from their closest people, then to the government, like, isn't it an ideal situation? Like, the expected course of action is of course for the government to support more girls to continuing their education to higher states. That's also the important one. Thank you, Sin.
Yeah, thank you so much. I think empathy is such an important issue, especially for a country like Indonesia. I believe I read something like it has a huge kind of youth population. So to have that empathy skills, it's really important to enhance the general health of the creative sector. As you said, Dian, it's a really important soft skills for young people to learn, to work in teams and collaborate in creative projects. Thank you very much for sharing that with us, and hopefully the audience will be able. There are lots of questions coming in. I will bring them in as we gave two other speakers the chance to talk to the second question. So I just want to bring Ha back in. Ha, do you want to talk about the kinds of measures that have been put in place to ensure gender equality at public funded organization like the one that you are leading? What has been the public response to these programs? What have worked and not worked in your experience?
Yeah, thank you, Sin. I work for Vietnam National Institute of Cultural Study for like almost 15 years already. So yeah, for during that time, I also witnessed the improvement as well as the shortcoming of the institute or of the organization as a public funded cultural and art related organization in Vietnam. And I believe the situation taking place within my organization will share similar situation or like similar element or characteristic with the other public funded organization in Vietnam in the field of culture and art and creativity. So before sharing with you a little bit more about my organization and their, how can I say, their activity which relating to ensuring the gender equality within their own organization, I might have to explain a little bit about why we have the huge number of the women working in the field of culture and arts in Vietnam. Because for many years, and I think it is in our tradition and in our culture that women and the girl, since the time that they have their own right to choose what kind of the, how can I say, what kind of the job or what kind of the subject that they want to study. I think before that, they are like really respect their parent choice and wish. So normally the parents in Vietnam really want to see their girl to study some kind of social science, some kind of also some kind of art and culture. But art and culture discipline is for fun, like something extra to make their life more beautiful, not for their own life career. But social science, like becoming a researcher, becoming a teacher, or becoming a nurse, some kind that the Vietnamese parent really always like encourage their girl to go. And that explains why we have the huge number of the women working in education and training system in Vietnam, as well as in the public funded cultural organization like Vicas. So I worked for Vicas for 15 years, and I see that for 15 years, we always have like a leader, not the director. The director is always like a man, but the vice director. Right now, we have 3 vice director are female. We have 10 over 12 head of the department and division are female. So, and I think we have more than 80% of the key staff are women, are female researcher or staff or administrator. So, and I think our organization have adequate and kind of supportive environment for the women to work with and to work in. Like we have the equal access to the, how can I say, capacity building or like further training. Like we have the equal opportunity to accept that within our own organization to, how can I say, for our capacity building or for the career development. We also have the equal opportunity to be promoted as long as your year or annual performance is good. And we also have the same payment, same bonus every year. And the indicator as their performance and the outcome of any project that you are taking charge of. However, because we are in a society where we still witness some kind of, how can I say, a little bit stubborn perception about the role of Vietnamese women when relating to their, how can I say, instinct or nature of the women, of the Vietnamese women is to stick to their family. So we still in Vicas sometimes that I still witness some kind of minor, how can I say, verbal harassment among the college, male college sometimes. And the problem is we did not, how can I say, fight for that. And I think it also coming from our own female Vietnamese women perception about their own, how can I say, position and their own role in the society and in the organization. Some of my female colleagues still think that we are not smart and as strong as men. And we should not, like some of them still think we should not try hard. We should not, how can I say, go forward with such a lot of challenge and difficulties in the work. We don't need to do that. We are women. Having a stable job is enough. And you have a decent job like a researcher is enough. And And still, some of us still think that our main role in life is to take care of the kids and to take care of the family, to behave as a good wife. And I think that kind of perception still sometimes taking place. I see it within my own organization. So I think, but not so much. And the situation has been improved. But still.
Yeah. I know the stigma is much more difficult to overcome, isn't it? It's, even in a country like Vietnam, where women rules, according to you early on, you still have to overcome some challenges. But thank you so much to share with us the story of your organization, and to hear that you've got not one but 3 vice director who are female in running the organization. And I think we should all have a bit of quota in place to make sure that women's representation within organizations can be guaranteed, because sometimes I think hard measures does work.
Yeah.
You know, not always work, but it's working in some ways, I think. So with that, I want to bring Kay in also. You've got a range of experiences, right? You've worked within the British Council as a policymaker, shall I say that? But you're also now working in the industry. So how important do you think to bring the 2 sides together, to work together to address that issue is important in relation to gender inequality?
Thank you. Yes, I think it is so vitally important. I mean, in terms of all the environment work we do, for example, it's about the people, it's about governments, it's about non-government organizations, but also the corporates. And it's the same when you look at these gender issues, right? So I'm incredibly fortunate to have trained as a pilot and been a technology lawyer previously. 2 of those things are kind of quite male dominated. But I'm really happy to report that actually my experience was surrounded by males who were educated enough to know actually that I'm just as good a pilot as anybody else. I'm just as good a tech lawyer as anybody else. But we also have to realize that that's actually not the case across the board. And there's still a lot of work to be done. We need to move that needle. The data speaks for itself, right? So really, really important that, for example, yes, we educate our boys and girls, or those who don't want to be any gender at all, about that kind of equality messaging. And that needs to start at school level, for example. And then that's kind of where you're thinking about the governments coming in and saying, well, you know, perhaps we need to have positive discrimination on occasions. We need to make sure that schools are teaching this to our children. And then we have other corporates who need to kind of rise up and say, well, you know, perhaps I can run a women in leadership program. You know, I'm kind of sorry to say that in Singapore, we're still languishing at about 1 in 5 for women on the board level. You know, so there's a lot that needs to be done. And if we can actually look to the work of UNESCO, UN Women, and actually try to start forging a lot more of these public-private partnerships that actually, so that we're not all working in our own little silos and we're sharing information across the board. Surely, by partnering in that way, we can all grow together and then actually have much more impact with actually the messaging that we're trying to achieve here. Fundamentally, though, from our camp, it's about education.
Yeah, thank you so much, Kay. I think that's wonderful to hear. And wow, you've done some crazy stuff, pilots and lawyer, and wow, that's amazing. It's great to hear. Actually, we've got a question from the audience. You might want to respond to that. I thought it's a really interesting question, because we tend to think that this session that we're having today is about just women in creative industries. But actually, the role of arts and culture could have, you know, could be seen to have an impact in all aspects of our life in women's development. So the question really is to ask, what is the role of the arts in the general kind of women's development? If you're not in arts and culture sector, does participating in arts program will have an impact, do you think? I want to start with you, Kay, because you are slightly off the creative industry core target.
Yeah, absolutely. So, the arts and culture industry and sector has long held values that they've tried to communicate, right? So around inclusion and diversity, important topics of our time. At Mesh Minds, we firmly believe that artists are some of the best placed people on the planet to visually communicate really difficult topics. So, we will continue to make sure that females are represented in terms of the programs and exhibitions that we're putting on. But I am pleased to say that actually, in terms of people using our augmented reality face filters on Instagram, etc., it's a 50-50 split. So I'm pleased to say it's not just a bunch of young males in their bedrooms kind of accessing all these things, so it is an equal audience. But yeah, absolutely getting involved in arts and culture, looking at the important messages that artists are trying to convey through their work is really important. And as we've agreed here today as well, it's maybe slightly stereotypically, but women are really, they have high levels of empathy. And that kind of caregiving nature is very much in our camp. Not to say that males do not have empathy and are not caregiving, but certainly, we have slightly higher levels, perhaps, where perhaps there's slightly higher quotient on the emotional, the EQ emotional quotient there. So, I think, yes, participation is absolutely key, not only as a consumer, but also a producer of art.
Yeah, thanks very much, Kay. Yeah, I was going to ask you to jump in here, Jane, and just want to hear if you have any programs in the Asian Foundation actually targeting just general women development using arts and culture.
Yeah, we do. But if I can just share a story first that illustrates the role of the arts in social change. It's a really powerful story. Lema Gabawi in Liberia led a few hundred women to really protest the civil war there. And there were all the men who were sustaining the civil war were gathered in a compound in Accra in Ghana. And all these women with a grant from Global Fund for Women surrounded the compound. And they basically said, you men, you have the power to end the civil war. We women, we're going to bare our breasts if you don't end the civil war. And so, bearing your breasts is like a hex on men. And so they said that if the men came out without ending the civil war, they'd all bare their breasts. And so they kept the men in this compound for a long time until the men finally made a decision to end the civil war. And then the women turned their attention to getting Ellen Johnson Sirleaf elected as the first female president of Liberia. But what's really telling about this story is that all of the journalists were focused on the male militants and the men and what they were doing at that time. They weren't focused on these amazing women peacemakers who were essentially working to end the civil war and get the first female president of Liberia elected. And it was Abby Disney, who was on the board of Global Fund for Women as a filmmaker, as Walt Disney's granddaughter, who heard about this story and said, oh my God, this is an incredible story. We're going to create a film of what these women made possible. And that film ended up being Pray the Devil Back to Hell. And then coupled with that, Tina Brown gave Lema Gabawi a book deal. And so the combination of the film and the book was what came before the Nobel Peace Prize Committee. And when the Nobel Peace Prize Committee heard about this story, they were compelled to then honour the three women, Ellen Johnson Sirleaf, Lema Gabawi, and I'm just trying to remember her name, this other incredible woman, as the first three women to win the Nobel Peace Prize. And so that again speaks to the power of media, the power of the arts, and the power of women's eyes. And when Abby Disney went back to these male journalists and said, why didn't you focus on the women. And they said, we just thought these were scraggly women doing something on the side, and the real story were the militant men. And so again, it just speaks to the power of the arts to be able to change the course of history in that way. In terms of what we're doing at the Asia Foundation, particularly in relation to technology, at a regional level, we're involved in a Go Digital ASEAN program to support women entrepreneurs, including those in rural and remote communities, to access digital skills and tools, and particularly to minimise the impacts from the COVID-19 crisis. So working with over 200,000 people there. In Mongolia, we have a dedicated women's business centre, which provides training to tech training to women entrepreneurs, but also to women survivors of trafficking and domestic violence. We're funding young women STEM scholars in Laos, Cambodia and Vietnam. And really interestingly, we're working in Thailand where we're piloting a mentoring program that sees female STEM PhD students mentoring female undergraduate STEM students, which is working really well. And we've also been partnering with APEC for a number of years on an app challenge. And so when the app conference was in Papua New Guinea a couple of years ago, the competition was won by a young girl who worked with her father to create a financial platform to support women Billum bag makers who are having real difficulty selling their bags. And so this financial platform created the opportunity for them to sell online. And so we connected her to the girl who won the competition with a financial institution to operationalise the platform. So when all these APEC delegates arrived on cruise ships and planes, they were able to order these Billum bags online. So they were delivered to them on the cruise ships and at the hotels. And this young girl was heralded as a real hero because all of these Billum bag makers suddenly made enough money to allow them to survive for the next year. So we've been doing a lot. We're also supporting a Women Learning and Leading in Tech in Thailand. And in Malaysia, we've partnered with the Tech Sprint Academy to pilot a technology upskilling program for women whose careers have been interrupted by COVID-19. And in Cambodia, all these young women in tech said that they wanted to work with us to create a Women in Tech network. And so we created a co-working space with them and a recent She Loves Tech competition. And then finally, just another example, with our Books for Asia program, we've been supporting young people, particularly girls and young women, to write, illustrate and design their own books and the languages that they'd like them to be available in, so that we can enhance their role as digital creators and storytellers. And just finally, we've also been partnering with female social entrepreneurs using technology. Women like Kalpana Visnawath, who co-created Safety Pin in India as a social organisation working to make public spaces safe and more inclusive for women. So we've been working with her to expand that work to other countries in Asia as well.
Wow, fantastic. Every time I ask you to say something, you just give me so much more than I expected. There's so much being created on this for sure. And I was going to ask you that question, but I think you've already answered that question about the role of digital in addressing gender inequality in Asia. So do you have anything to add here, or shall I just move on to the second person?
I think in the interest of time, it's probably a good idea to move on to the next person.
Yeah, thank you. I will then bring Diane into the conversation. This is our third round now. We talk about the role of digital. So in your foundation, how have you tried to improve women's digital literacy? We've had a lot of exchanges on your educational program and your experiences working with girls aged between 15 and 18. So maybe you can just share with us some of the kind of approaches you use to enhance their digital literacy. You're muted.
Yeah. Thank you for the question. First, in Kampung Halaman, how we improve the women's digital skill and literacy. First is for us is very important to let them know about themselves. I mean how to love themselves and practicing how to love themselves. because so many girls and women in Indonesia, including me, live in identity that our identity attached to us by other people. I mean, roles label externally imposed since we are little on what it means to be a woman, and that's what happened in our society. Girls tend to be know about themselves from other people around them. They when we ask them about what do you like, what do you want, there's something very hard to answer for them. So the first step for us is like we try to engage them to learn how to love themselves, and also to accept their flaws, not only their potential, but also acknowledge their flaws. And then we believe that this is something that from our observation, we see that this is something that they carry they carry to their digital persona. I mean, how they act within the virtual world. So many girls that we met create more than one alter account in social media. Like they have so many accounts and with different purpose. And of course, it is also part of their way to adapt, not only in the online world, but also in the offline. Then survive, but yeah, equip them with the tools to survive in digital world. Means the critical we give them the critical education on everything digital is necessary, how to make use of the opportunity in digital world, encourage them to utilize their gadget in productive way, but also building their awareness on danger. This is very important. I mean, this is we're talking about digital safety on then and consequences of certain action, so they can protect themselves in this digital world. And then we encourage them not only become a consumer, but we engage them to become a producer, creating content that can spread positive message, especially for their peers, their best friend, and a close friend in their society, in their neighborhood, as well as to sharpening their digital skill. When they're creating a space where they can freely express themselves, honest to be told that they are far more familiar and fluent than us, I mean the adult, because since they are digital native, so they just need more skill, like perspective how what they can do with all their knowledge, how much they can make an impact by reaching out the positive content. This is very important because we already have many digital junk in our cyber adventure, so we don't want them add that more junk in their digital world. And then when they learn about the impact, when the girls learn the impact, they could possibly steer with their action. It will like return back to them. They will learn the meaning of appreciation. They will learn that it feels good to helpful to others, and they will want to develop this skill more. then their creativity will be sparked. We believe that.
Right. Thank you very much again for your very considerate, kind of developing a scheme to listen, to have the voice, and to build relatable relationships with these young women and to enhance their digital literacy skills. I'm conscious of time. I'm just going to bring in Ha here and to talk about your experience with legal framework for the culture and creative industries. Do you think we can ensure women's participation in our sector through legislation?
Yes, I think it is possible, and it is how can I say doable in Vietnam, as long as the government, the policymaker, they recognize the fact that thanks to the digital future of the world economy, of our national economy, and particularly of the culture and creative industry, that will help to eliminate all the obstacles and constraints that we have right now for women in terms of assessing all the how can I say possibility and opportunity to participate and to have opportunity to contribute to the development, to the whole process of the development of the industry, from the creativity, from the creation to the production, distribution, and consumption of all the culture and art product and service. So I think that is for what I think kind of optimistic. But however, I don't think that Vietnam will achieve that within a short time, like 3 or 5 years, because right now we haven't had a national data framework for the gender equity in the creative industry. If we don't have any number of how many women, how can I say, exact number of how many women working direct or indirectly in 12 sector of the culture and creative industry in Vietnam. We even don't have the data for the culture and creative industry in Vietnam. So I think it will take more than that in order to have the, how can I say, the legislation relating to the women participant in the digital related industry in Vietnam in next few years. But I think I would love not to talk about the legislation, but I would love to mentioning about that Vietnam can have like intervention, some kind of specific intervention, kind of like a quick win intervention in next few years, in order to support and to promote and to ensure the women participation in the digital world, in especially in the culture and creative industry. Right now, we do have a lot of campaigns or national program to support for the startup of creative startup for women entrepreneurs in Vietnam. We have a national program of that since 2015. And I think we achieved some of the significant achievement, like we support like around, let me see, I have the number here that, yes, in 2018, we support that national program already support like almost 15,000 women to start business, including creative business and enterprise at the like a small and micro level. But still, it's really a good, even a good number of the women receive the support from the government in terms of like a seed funding, in terms of training and education for their skill, professional skill and entrepreneurialism and marketing communication. I just took that the digital skill will be included in the specific program. So I would love to see that the similar program will be continued or like to develop specifically for the digital platform to support for the women working in the field of the creativity. And the other intervention can be is to provide the official legal status for the creative organization in Vietnam. Because to tell you the truth, even though we have like almost 200 culture and art organization in Vietnam, but like 70% of them they don't have a legal status, like enterprise or company or social enterprise. They work just as a bunch of people gathered together. And because of that, the women and the female artists and the creative women working in those organizations, they are not protected by the national legal framework and regulation as women labor. And they, some of them still because of they are not legally protected by their organization legal status, so that they can be easily abused or like unequally treated by their team leader or by their manager or even by their college. So I think we can, how can I say, Vietnam can have can support, change the legal framework in order to allow more small and micro organizations like Creative Hub in Vietnam to have legal status. Yeah, and also education and training and awareness raising campaign to persuade the society and the parents of the future creative women in Vietnam about the significant contribution of the creativity to our future development of our nation. So with the support from the family, from their parents, I think we will have a future creative women and leader in the short term. Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I think you put forward some interesting idea. I think not just in Asia, around the world, the ad hoc status of culture organizations plus the precarious culture labor are two major issues beyond the gender issues. These are really big concerns of culture industry researchers and policymakers around the world, not just in Asia. But I'm glad to hear that you identify similar issues in Asia as well. And just follow on from that, I think it's a good time to bring out Kay as well, because I think has kind of coming from that public policy perspective to look at those issues from the public organization policymakers perspective. You working in the private sector, do you see there's a role for companies to play, and in particular relating to your own project? You were talking about the public-private partnerships in addressing this particular issue. So what would you like to see private sector to kind of maybe do more or do less? I don't know. So what can they do? What kind of role do you think should be expected of them in a society trying to address this issue?
Absolutely. I think, private sector, we can certainly have more celebrations of women. I'm pleased to say, in Singapore, but again, this is absolutely not across the world. You can regularly find media articles, for example, that talking about 5 female artists to watch and all of that good stuff. So sharing and celebrating people for sure. Perhaps also, though, maybe trying to forge more collaborations. And now this is kind of into the kind of positive discrimination, making things happen field. But sometimes maybe you kind of think, well, maybe it's just needed. So perhaps where we have lots of females going into the arts education sector, why in Singapore perhaps could we not do more where we're saying, well, look, there's loads of males who are studying computer science or gaming or that kind of stuff. How about we pair them? Because pairing them then brings different sets of skills to the table, different value systems, and then they can learn from each other. So it may be a kind of like, what some might say a forced collaboration, but maybe it's kind of time that we need some of these forced collaborations and to kind of bring those people together. So, but also private sector can, of course, sponsor great programs. We would love, for example, to see a women in creative technology to kind of complement all of the women in tech, girls in tech programs. I do think that obviously in this kind of post-COVID, or we're still coping with COVID world in this kind of new normal, let's jump on the fact that we're all getting very used to having virtual conferences like this. Even earlier today, we had people, amazing speakers from Nepal, Tajikistan, like every corner of the world. So let's call on companies like Facebook and Zoom and to support more of these virtual conferences. Maybe these guys also need to come to the table. The world's richest technology companies should actually be there saying, we all need to speak more. We need to hear from the corner of Tajikistan, from Nepal, from India, from Indonesia, Vietnam, wherever you are. What project are you working on that is going to address these gender equality issues? What can we learn from each other? And then how can we grow more and then achieve one day, finally, a more equal world for all?
Wow, it's a very inspirational statement. And I think we actually started the half-day symposium with that observation that it takes a whole world to really address that issue. You cannot just talking within silos amongst women themselves, or it certainly clearly is not a developed country issue. It's a whole world issue. In fact, in developing countries, as the panel members have already explored, there are some really deep culture, social traditions that prevent these targets being achieved. And so I would like to thank all of you for your really inspirational talks and your personal stories of working in creative industries that you've shared with us this afternoon. I'm going to do a bit of summarizing talk now. Just bear with me, very short, not too long. I think gender inequality continues to be a very major problem for our sector. The COVID crisis has really exacerbated the problem across societies, not just in developed world, but also in Asia Pacific. The two panels this afternoon have given us hope that there's really opportunities and approaches we could undertake to overcome this unequal status of women and girls within our sector in the region. And despite being underlined by some structural gendered inequalities, I think creative entrepreneurship embedded in leadership training programs and educational programs can be critical driving forces for social transformation for equality for our region. The successful examples shown today through all of your hard work, supported by the UNESCO Sabrina Ho initiatives, share the same concern, I think. And that concern is to capture, to amplify the voices of young women in our sector. It is clear that culture policy has a direct impact here and can make really positive contributions to youth and gender-oriented projects. Many of these projects and initiatives we've heard this afternoon have become really excellent opportunities for young creative women to be a part of policymaking or advocacy groups or creative entrepreneurship development opportunities. I think with the increasing rising of economic importance of our region, the gender equality is going to be all the more important for our future growth. Not only is this necessary for sustainable development agenda for our region, it will also be a policy initiative that unites us that builds the foundation for common understanding across different policy initiatives in different societies in our region. I'm hopeful that with our dedication and collective wills to address this problem of gender inequality, we are making the global creative economy a better place to be. So with that, I just want to thank UNESCO Resilient Art and UNESCO Sabrina Ho Initiative for making the event happen. I would also like to thank our dedicated audience who gave us so many interesting questions through this session for your accompany and your insightful questions. And please stay connected with UNESCO post this event. Last but not least, I would like to thank the team at UNESCO Bangkok for their diligent teamwork for staging this event. Well done, team. For those who missed part or all of the session today, you can watch the recorded symposium through the You Are the Next website, as well as UNESCO Bangkok website. Check out also our Facebook page to have your say about the issue of gender equality in digital creative industries. And if you have any idea or creative projects that you would like to share with the UNESCO Sabrina Ho's initiative, please do check in with the team at UNESCO Bangkok here. We are now coming to the end of today's UNESCO Resilient Art Symposium, You Are Next, Empowering Creative Women, sponsored by UNESCO Sabrina Ho Initiative. I would like to ask all of the panel members this afternoon to turn on your video so that we can see this collective of fantastic, excellent speakers this afternoon. So can you just please turn on your video? I'm taking instructions from the UNESCO Bangkok office for this event. Yes, and so if you want to say some last words or say goodbye, you can. I just want to say that thank you so much for watching the event, and thank you for being a part of this. I'm not sure, shall I turn this into gallery view? I've turned it into gallery view. Can you see everyone on the screen? Yes. Thank you so much. It's so wonderful to hear your story. I hope we can be connected. And thank you so much for your contribution. Have a great Christmas. Hopefully, we will have more conversations in next year, in person, face to face. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye.
Yeah,
thank you.
Bye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Karen. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.